Ahead of tomorrow's mock draft Monday, we're going to sit and break down the team needs for the Rams moving forward into the draft. Obviously, we've been discussing different positions the Rams can look at, but I really want to hone in and explain why I think certain positions are a priority over others in this year's upcoming draft. We're also going to talk about potentially trading some depth on the defensive side of the ball, all in today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron. Remember, if you guys are not subscribed to the channel, do me the favor, press that subscribe button now, as 73.2% of you guys are watching the videos, but you're still not subscribed to the channel. Do me a favor, press that subscribe button so you don't miss any daily Rams content here at the Rams Digest. First things first, I want to get into this story here. It's kind of a bit of a smaller story. I'm not really too concerned about it, but I want to explore this idea from Pro Football Focus. They're talking about potentially trading a depth safety the Rams have on the roster right now. We're talking about potentially trading Kyren Williams. We'll explain why PFF is saying this, why I kind of maybe disagree with this, but we'll break it down right now. So, should the Los Angeles Rams trade veteran defensive back? Again, this comes from us from Pro Football Focus. I believe his name was Locker. I forget his first name, Bradley Locker, coming out of PFF, just kind of writing an idea of what the Rams can do in terms of refining that roster, right? Trying to really build and finalize this potentially Super Bowl winning roster the Rams are trying to build right now. And so here we go. It says, as Los Angeles Rams prepare for the upcoming NFL season, General Manager Les Snead and the front office are focused on refining their roster. Trade options are a valuable tool for the team. For teams in the Rams position, and Pro Football Focus's Bradley Locker suggests that safety Kyren Williams is their most tradable asset. The Rams can afford to trot out the exact same personnel from a secondary that ranked 19th in PFF coverage grade in 2024, Locker wrote. I do want to pause there for a second and just kind of acknowledge, personally, no disrespect to PFF, they've kind of become this kind of or football coverage, stat coverage organization that's kind of giving these grades out that really does help in terms of kind of trying to rank and rate certain players in terms of offense, defense, production, that kind of using advanced, nerdy stats that I don't really understand. But I also do want to note that I take their opinion with a grain of salt because I do think it's an opinion. They're giving Pro Football Focus grades. They are essentially grading players off of stats, statistics, but also a little bit of eye test, and also the way they break things down can kind of be complex. So I want to say this. I'm not saying that you can take their grades as fact. I'm not saying their grades are wrong. I'm just simply saying take it as another opinion on a player and how this particular player is ranking. So the Rams secondary in general being ranked 19th in terms of PFF coverage grade is not a super major concern in my opinion, but hey, to each their own. I just want to note that for a second. Shout out to Bradley Locker for writing this. With other burgeoning options at safety, some of the team's veterans could be on the trade block. He further noted in his first season with the Rams, Curl registered a 63.7 PFF coverage grade and in 68.5 PFF run defense grade. Yet his PFF overall grade, 68.4, was actually ranked behind the rookie Cam Kitchens for the Rams, which his rookie numbers were 61.5 in terms of PFF coverage grade. So it will be tough to keep Kitchens off the field in 2025, and Curl has just 1 year left on his contract. I do think it's important to note here the Rams are in a position where they are trying to build a Super Bowl roster. In my opinion, if you fit these guys already on your roster, and there's no like major cap concerns in terms of like Kyren Williams' contract being this extreme number that you just want to kind of cut loose to save money, I really don't agree with just releasing players or trading players because they're extra depth that you want Kitchens on the field more. If you want Kitchens on the field more, then just play him more. Have Sean McVay, that's the defensive coordinator, right? Their job to kind of decide who plays and how many snaps they play. If that's the issue, then just play one guy over the other. But if you want to have depth, you want to make sure in case of injury, in case of emergency, you have the right pieces in place. I think keeping a guy like Kyren Williams, a veteran piece who's been in this defense for a couple of seasons now, I think that, or at this point would be a couple of seasons, I think that would be more appealing to me than the Rams just overall trading him for a future draft asset. That's just kind of where I stand on that situation. So overall, I'm not really super interested in trading Kyren Williams, but you guys let me know how you guys feel. Moving on from that, Rams needs. I do want to kind of sit and talk about this, and we'll try to go through quickly because we have a lot of ideas to discuss. But I kind of want to sit and break down the Rams needs, what they need, because I feel like we haven't really discussed that. Yes, we've discussed maybe they need a tight end, inside linebacker, and a cornerback. But what is the priority, right? What do they really desperately do need now, right? And we can kind of sit and talk about this and break it down in a little bit more detail. So just kind of Googling this real quick, using the AI kind of assistance, they kind of broke it down for us, right? So they said Los Angeles Rams have several key positions of need, including offensive tackle, tight end, inside linebacker, cornerback, and potentially receiver. Here's a more detailed look at what the Rams need. Offensive tackle, we're talking about Rob Havenstein, tight end, inside linebacker, cornerback, receiver, other potential positions. Safety, nose tackle. But I wanted to kind of rank these needs. I wanted to kind of break down and give a reason why the Rams are looking for if I say the Rams need an offensive tackle, someone might be able to throw back, well, you have Alaric Jackson, you have Rob Havenstein, you don't really need an offensive tackle right now, but why do we have to explore that route? And is it a priority over taking a starter at the inside linebacker position? That's kind of the conversation I kind of wanted to have today. And so we can sit and break this down, starting off with my number one need for the Rams. Here is a picture of Omar Speights. So obviously, we do have someone who, we hope that can grow at this position, someone that we think can succeed at this position. I think that's kind of obviously the goal here when we're talking about what the Rams need at the linebacker position. But I do think the Rams need some help and some depth at the linebacker position. I did say sleeper kind of sneaky pick. You're talking about picking up Nate Landman from Atlanta. I think he's a hard hitter. I think he can actually be aggressive and maybe force some fumbles, force some turnovers. In general, has decent coverage skills. I think he's going to be a sneaky sleeper fan favorite this upcoming season, have some big-time plays at big-time moments for the Rams. But ultimately, I don't think Nate Landman is going to be your answer at the middle linebacker position all year long. I think overall, are we really going to roll into next season just saying, okay, we got Speights, we got Landman, we are solid and set at the inside linebacker position? Now, don't get me wrong, the Rams over the past few seasons, honestly, since Sean McVay has really taken over at the head coach, they haven't really valued the inside linebacker position. Some people even joke and say the inside linebacker position is the running back of the defense. But ultimately, I think it's the other way around. I think inside linebacker is actually the quarterback of the defense. Someone who, if you have someone in the middle of the field who can lead, who could be a leader, read the offense, what the offense may do, kind of study the game, have the right mindset in terms of being a leader on the defense side of the ball, I think that's very key and could ultimately transform a defense from being, again, from good to incredibly great, maybe Super Bowl winning defense, right? We have that inside linebacker position locked in. Not saying that Speights can't be that, but I am saying right now I don't think the Rams should just roll into next year saying we're all set at linebacker with Landman and Speights. I think they should add one more piece in there, whether that's a CJ Mosley from free agency, whatever other free agent linebacker you kind of like in that middle linebacker role, or drafting a player high in the draft that you kind of can come in and expect to be a leader early in their career. That's where I'm at in terms of their number one need. Inside linebacker seems to be the biggest hole where I'm not really super crazy confident in what we have right now on the roster currently. Moving on from that, we can talk about the next need, and I'm talking about cornerback. Yes, you're talking about Darius Williams. You're talking about Kyren Williams on a one-year deal. Whether we're talking about depth for potential future, replacements of a Kyren Williams, or we're talking about starters now, Kyren Williams, Darius Williams, are we just going to assume that Darion Kendrick is ready after that torn ACL last year? Are we just going to assume that Emmanuel Forbes is going to be this great cornerback that we kind of been waiting for him to kind of break out and be? I'm not really sure that's really the case or the situation the Rams find themselves in. I think they should go ahead and maybe potentially draft a guy early in the draft, maybe sign a potential veteran free agent as well. Just some kind of piece that you can kind of know, okay, this player can play certain snaps. This player, if someone gets hurt, can maybe step in and do what they got to do. That to me is Emmanuel Forbes, maybe Darion Kendrick, right? But is Darion Kendrick ready? Kyren Witherspoon, all these guys. I don't know how I switched the picture without me. I wasn't even looking. We are talking about, when we're talking about cornerback, we're talking about cornerback. I ideally feel like it's a real serious position of need. The Rams haven't really been talked about in terms of looking into sooner rather than later. And so cornerback is definitely my biggest need for the Rams this upcoming offseason. Sorry if I got off track there in terms of what I was thinking. I was distracted by the different picture of Tyler Higbee. But speaking about Tyler Higbee, that is my next biggest need. The third biggest need for the Rams would be addressing the tight end position. It's because Tyler Higbee is at that point in his career where he's been getting hurt. He was hurt a lot last year. Showed that he could still be a very valuable asset to the Rams on the offensive side of the ball, but I think you need to find a replacement sooner rather than later, because if he goes down with a knee injury or ankle injury or whatever it is, Not wishing that on him. I hope he stays 100% healthy. But if he does go down with the injury like he has been lately, then ultimately you're left with Colby Parkinson, who can obviously do a fine job at the tight end position. But I think the Rams want more out of their tight end position than just what Colby Parkinson brings to the table. So I think this is more of an in case of injury kind of situation. If Higbee's healthy, I'm fine with him being the starter all year. But ultimately, I think you need that depth piece, that future potential tight end to draft him now, so that way potentially next year and a few years after, he can kind of learn under Higbee and grow into his own starting tight end, whoever that tight end ends up becoming. Moving on from that, we are sitting and talking about the right tackle position. The Rams need to find a future right tackle to replace Rob Havenstein. By the way, shout out to Rob Havenstein. Congrats to him. He has officially been in the NFL for 10 seasons, a full decade with the Los Angeles Rams. And so obviously incredible for him to how long he's played for the Rams, how big of a staple he's been on this offense, obviously being now a Super Bowl champ as well. And so overall, I think, you got to give him his credit where credit is due. We're not trying to move on from him sooner rather than later. He is a Rams legend in my opinion, but ultimately you do need to get ready to move on from him in the near future. And that's why I think I moved him down the list a little bit more behind the Higbee, behind the Higbee's more of the injury issue is my concern, right? So if he goes down, you need someone now. Havenstein's been fairly healthy, and I think I'm okay with him at the right tackle position this year, but we're looking at the future of the right tackle position. You got to find a replacement to move on from him eventually. And so I think now is the time to look, as he's 32, about to be 33 years old. You want to make sure you're looking at that sooner rather than later. Next, we can talk about defensive tackle. I think the Rams obviously signing Puka Nacua is huge. They need to find a replacement already for Puka Nacua. Not saying that he's too old. He's 29 years old. Obviously, we're going to have an exciting season with him, but ultimately, I think the Rams want to find a defensive tackle who's also on the timeline of everybody else in that defense, right? When we're talking about the young guys of Jared Verse, Braden Fisk, Byron Young, Kobe Turner, I think we need another defensive tackle that can possibly fit that timeline a little bit more, so that way, say you draft a defensive tackle now, learns behind Puka Nacua, kind of sits behind in the rotation of the defensive line, and then by the time Puka Nacua, his 2-year, 3-year deal is up, then we can kind of move on into this guy whoever the player becomes is someone who can kind of fill that role a little bit nicer after a couple seasons of sitting behind Puka Nacua and learning behind Puka Nacua. That's kind of the ideal situation there. Again, not really too concerned. You just signed Puka Nacua. Let's see how he plays first. But just an idea. I think the Rams should look into a depth nose tackle in terms of moving forward, which is why this is not really a super big priority in my opinion. Next up, interior offensive line. I think, of course, you have Dotson, you have Steve Avila, you do have Bo Limmer. We just brought back Shelton. I'm forgetting his name right now, but you brought back the center, right? That was previously playing for the Rams, and so I think ultimately the Rams are in a pretty good position in terms of their starters. Obviously, you got a battle at center. The starting guards are set, but ultimately injury. This is what we're talking about here. We're talking about the concern of a potential injury coming up. You want to make sure you get more depth on the interior offensive line. Again, not a major priority, but something I think the Rams need to kind of look into. And why I moved it down is because it's just not really super concerning for the Rams at this point in time. And then talking about that depth that they already have at the safety position, I think the Rams are doing okay there. We're all set. I think if they just keep the guys they have on the roster right now, they'll be okay moving forward. They don't really have to address this position for a couple more years, I think. Again, Cam Curl's on a 1-year deal. Don't trade him. Just keep him on that 1-year deal. Maybe draft a guy late and then look into the draft next year for some more depth to kind of add to the rotation of the safety position. It's kind of a need, but ultimately not really a major concern. I think I'm happy with what the defensive back room has right now in terms of the safety position. And then I think that's pretty much it. We can check in last but not least. No, we got the trivia of the day. But before we get into trivia of the day, I just want to kind of sit and talk about that. So those were the needs I feel for the Rams. That's kind of how I rank them. You guys let me know if you guys agree with those rankings. Just kind of see if you guys feel maybe a certain need I'm not really pushing as much as you think maybe the Rams do need. But that's kind of where I'm at with the Rams' needs. And so when we're moving forward into future mock drafts, that's a perspective I'm going to have and kind of the rankings I'm going to have. Of course, we can kind of flip-flop certain positions. I'm not going to force inside linebacker because I feel like the Rams need one. I think the Rams got to be smart about where they're picking, but ultimately those are kind of the positions of need I think they should really heavily target in this year's draft, and kind of in that order is where they should be looking at it. Last but not least, trivia of the day. For those who have never played before, I give a trivia question. You guys play along by giving your comments down below of your guess for the day, and if you guys are right, I'll give you a shout out. If you're wrong, I'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Trivia of the day last episode was this question here: what is the last name of brothers Corey, Kendall, Kyle, and Vincent, all of whom have played in the NFL. The multiple choice options for that question was it A, Fuller, as I'm messing up here. Was it A, Fuller? Was it B, Griffin? Was it C, Jackson? Was it D, Davis? Was it Corey, Fuller, Corey, Griffin, Corey, Jackson, or Corey Davis, along with those siblings in the NFL? Which of those was the correct last name? We did get a couple of guesses here. I want to give a shout out to Floyd saying, wild guess here is Jackson. We had Anthony saying the Fullers is the last name. Which one was it? We'll kind of wait and see. First of all, thank you to both of you guys for commenting. I appreciate it. Not too many people have been playing the last couple of trivias of the days, so I appreciate you guys playing along. Floyd always playing along every single week or every single episode. Fuller was the correct last name. So the wild guess was wrong. Floyd, shout out to Anthony for getting that answer correct. It was the Fullers. That whole family has 4 brothers playing or have played in the NFL in the past. So shout out to you guys for playing along. If you guys want to play along on today's episode of Trivia of the Day, go ahead and play along with this question here. Future Hall of Fame defensive end J.J. Watt began his college career at what school? So maybe he played on a different university at some point and was drafted out of a different university. But future Hall of Fame defensive end J.J. Watt began his college career at what school? Was it A, Bowling Green University? Was it B, Northern Iowa? Was it C, Central Michigan? Or was it D, Eastern Illinois? Let me know your guesses down below, and we'll give you a shout out on the next episode. Whether you're right, whether you're wrong, we'll shout you out anyways. Other than that, that's going to do it for me on today's episode of the Rams Digest. I'm your host, Joshua Giron, and I'm out.